this cycle of passing down emotional clumsiness can stop with you. That thing is Neo from the Matrix.
It literally glitched everywhere. Emotional Mayhem. That is a book we got to read last year with a couple of our friends. We went through it over like 2 months or so.
Probably longer. It took a while.
Yeah, we would just read once or twice a week. It was a really good book to follow. What's the other book? Easy to Love, Difficult to Discipline, which is the book that we started off our journey with emotions and
emotional intelligence.
Emotional intelligence. I mean, we've read them before in the past from other authors, but I think that book by Becky Bailey really was a piece of humble pie.
Yeah, if you're ever up for challenging yourself, the way you think and what you believe, I seriously recommend reading both of those books. But definitely, if you're going to pick one, pick this one. Easy to Love, Difficult to Discipline. It is the most personally challenging book I think that I've ever read. And it's geared toward parents, but the concept of it is about self-discipline. If you're not self-disciplined, you can't help your children to be self-disciplined, which is the goal. You don't want to think of discipline as something that you have to do to your children or for your children. You want to develop self-disciplined human beings so that they can make good choices and be disciplined without your guidance as they age.
Yeah, the whole premise is you cannot teach what you don't know and possess. You can't teach a skill you can't possess.
Right, and every, majority of every human being's emotional intelligence is primitive at best. And so if you don't develop that and work on that, you certainly can't teach it to your children or anyone else for that matter. So I was thinking the other day about emotions in general, and this is from the other book that Becky Bailey wrote, which is called Emotional Mayhem. And she helps depict emotions for you as a guiding system. I think she calls it EGS, Emotional Guiding System, or something like that.
I think so.
Like
we
GPS.
kept calling it eggs.
Eggs, yeah, that's right. Yeah, okay. So she refers to it as a guiding system, and it's really a wonderful picture, a word picture, because I always, majority of my life, I went through life reading. Since I was about 12 years old, I read Proverbs, and I continued reading Proverbs over and over and over and over. And it talks about self-control and things like that. And, being slow to anger really, really stuck with me, because some people in my life early on were angry at the drop of a hat, and just angry a lot, and kind of borderline out of control, lost control many times. And I really despised that completely. I didn't want to be like that. And so I grew up with this picture of nothing's going to make me angry. I'm never going to get angry. I don't want to be angry, which I think on one hand was a good thing, because I've developed a keen sense of humor because of that. I've figured out a way to laugh at a lot of things and try to be happy. What happened, though, that I realized upon reading this book was that I wasn't letting my emotions be the guiding system that they're made to be. And so the premise in the book, and something that I genuinely believe now, is that your emotions guide you through your life. And what happens is majority of men end up just completely stuffing all the emotions down and pretending that they don't exist, myself included, up until the last couple of years. You cram all the emotions, you pretend they don't exist, and you try to move from a position of logic and reason, which is fine. What's not fine with the logic and reason aspect is when you don't acknowledge the emotions and the message that they're sending to you. And so every emotion is giving you some form of a message. For example, if you feel frustrated, the message of frustration is to be willing to see or do things differently, right? So if you're doing something, and let's say you're working on something on your car and it's just not working out and you're starting to feel frustrated, if you don't listen to the message of that emotion, frustration, which is a guiding system that God has given you, if you don't listen to that message, step back and look at how you can do something different than what you're doing, then the frustration is going to continue to build. And you're not going to be able to necessarily change what you're doing or see a bigger picture. So you might just cram the emotion and try to move on, but you're going to continue making mistakes as you're fixing the car, or you're going to blow a gasket because your frustration just gets out of control and you never regulate, right? So the goal is to listen to the message of the emotion, regulate yourself to calm, which the message of calm is that all is well. So you regulate yourself to the status of calm, and then at that point you can move into rational and logical decision making. That's the process. And I didn't know that process. So before, the way I would handle it would just be pretend the emotion doesn't exist, focus on logic and reason, but then later the emotion comes back and I never regulated it. And so it just continues to build. And thankfully, it never got to the point to where I snapped and blew up or anything like that. But, I think that's what happens to a lot of men, particularly who don't develop self-control and also don't understand this whole emotional guiding system.
Recently, I found this lady on Instagram. She caught my attention because she was talking about sensory overload. And so whether it's auditory or like physical sensory, touch or visual stimulation, like if the whole house is cluttered and messy. Anyways, but her backstory, how she came to her position, like what she's doing now, is that her husband actually committed suicide. Just like, let's just say out of the blue, he was a successful man, had everything, right? There was really no signs of that. I mean, I think she talks about how in hindsight she could see the signs, but there was really that it was all about that repressed emotion. Whether he was struggling mentally or he was feeling all the feelings he was feeling, all the emotions he was feeling, it never was brought out to light. He never spoke about it. He never got help, and so he eventually ended up with depression and suicide. But I think that's a big thing right now with people trying to speak out about men in particular for their emotional health, and just how they've repressed everything, and now it's showing up, as in terms of bad health. And
yeah, I mean, you can only do that. You can only pretend for so long, right? You pretend that the emotions don't exist so that you can pretend that you're moving forward with logic and reason. And so you're in a state of pretend calm. And the reality is, I can say from experience, and I know that a lot of men out there who are going to listen to this can also agree, when you say you're calm, you're not always calm. A lot of times you put on the face of calm, the appearance of calm, but on the inside you're bubbling, or maybe you're really sad, or whatever emotion you're feeling, it's there and it's real. And that is a guiding system that is giving you a message. It's speaking a message to you that you have to listen to be able to regulate it. If you don't listen to that message and understand it, you can never regulate the emotion that you're feeling. So if you're feeling sad, the emotion is to seek love and comfort from somebody that you love. If I'm feeling sad, let's say I've experienced a family loss, I need to seek love and comfort from my wife, the closest person to me. That's going to help me regulate my sadness. If I experience that family loss and I completely suppress the emotion of sadness and pretend it doesn't exist, at some point later in my future, it's going to come back and it's going to be more than it was at the moment, and it's going to be more in the realm of overwhelm, which, that's a lot harder to regulate than when you initially feel it, letting yourself feel it, listening to the message, expressing what's going on, and then regulating back to calm.
That book that we were reading for audiobook about the brain, what was it called?
Oh yeah, The Secret Life of the Mind.
Yeah,
wonderful book.
They mentioned how one can only, if they don't phrase it like one can only pretend for so long, but they say that pretending is not, like, putting out that facade that you're saying is not good at all. Like,
it's not healthy.
I think that they said it in the reference of, like, you're going to work and you're just pretending everything's okay, and that's what they said it in. I took it to my personal situation of, like, I think it was more so like with the kids, just like, even though I'm upset, with them, not like kind of suppressing it so I don't, get upset at them. But obviously that comes with regulation. But you just have to work through the emotions. You really can't pretend. It actually, like, the act of pretending that something's different than what you actually feel, that's causing, like, dissonance in your body.
Yeah.
So,
well, it's causing a lot of things. I mean, it's even contributing to other new emotions, right? Because now, let's say you're suppressing your frustration, and then you're moving in a state of pretend calm with, let's say, your spouse, and then something they're saying or doing, you're feeling more frustration from that, and it's all just kind of piling. Or maybe you get some sad news and now you have sadness piled on top of frustration, and you're not listening to either one of these messages that are coming from these emotions, and you're not regulating them. It just becomes disastrous for sure. You have, your cortisol levels and things like that just go through the roof because you're never de-stressing and calming down. You're only pretending on the surface. And yeah, again, I mean, it's gonna catch up, and it's gonna bite you.
and it's not just the men who suffer, obviously, from emotional problems. Women do too, and not in the terms of, like, women suppress their emotions, which some women do. Maybe I'm the only one, I don't know, but I think I've cried less in our whole marriage than this guy
It's
has.
true. That is
It's
because of the changes that I've undertaken.
anyways, I think women as a whole get put into this whole emotional, weepy, overly
Emotional.
overly,
Just,
yeah. And it's also not good.
Yeah. So the flip side with women is, statistically, this obviously isn't. This is general. We're generalizing. Majority of women are overly emotional, and so men you have moving from a place of logic and reason with pretend calm. Women you have moving from a place of hyper emotional with possibly pretend calm, maybe pretend logic and reason. There's problems on both of those sides, and there's a perfect balance between the two. The woman that is hyper emotional and never regulating is not ever truly moving back to a status of calm so that she can make logical and rational decisions, right? So that's as much of a downfall as the man who is pretending to be calm and trying to make logical and rational decisions, but at the same time, on the inside, he's feeling all these emotions that are pent up that he's suppressing. And what happens, I think, one of the things overall, one of the messages for today is this cycle that has been going on for who knows how long before of passing down emotional clumsiness can stop with you. It stops with us. We will not pass down emotional clumsiness to our children. We're going to pass down emotional competence and emotional intelligence so that they can understand this guiding system. They're allowed to feel the feelings that they have, and then they need to regulate through that feeling, listen to the message that system, that God-given system is giving them. And it is God-given. A lot of people, especially men, will try to say, myself included previously, I was of the opinion that emotions are basically toxic and you need to just ignore them completely. If you really sit and think about that perspective, that life is better without emotions and they're just toxic and you can't make decisions and stuff like that. If you really think about it, life without emotions is dead and dull. It's cold. It's no fun whatsoever, right? There's no excitement when somebody's hurt, when there's a family loss. If you literally suppress, exactly, it's robotic, and that life is not robotic.
No.
Life is emotional and life is logical. The problem is there's no balance between the two. There's no balance whatsoever, and so that's the overall goal to reach, is to bring both of those things into balance.
And even though we generalized emotions from male and female, I mean, it's multifaceted. I mean, you could be aggressive, passive aggressive, or assertive. All those are just highlighting different qualities of like with my experience, it was more so anger showing up more than any other emotion, and even fear showing up as anger, sadness showing up as anger. And so it's not so much that I didn't have any emotions, it's just that only some of them were allowed to surface. And I say allowed to because a lot of it has to do with how you grow up, how you were disciplined, all those things. But anyways, yeah, it's not the whole can of worms, and we look forward to talking more about this and growing through all of this.
And that's all we have for right now. We hope you join us on the path to great.
Stop.
That was interesting.
I know, I'm beginning itches. Crack hands.
Go ahead.
What are you gonna say next? Are you gonna jump
Go
in?
ahead, yeah, eventually. Just shut your mouth. I'm just joking.